Morning. Please. We are 69B towards the bottom. Towards the bottom. So we have all these cases of the idol worshiper carrying your things. You leave them in a store, on the boat. You're drinking with him, and if you tell him, I'll be back in a while. So then, when you come back, it's going to be prohibited because he assumes you're going to come back in a while, and he's going to go and mess with the wine. So now, we're going to put two things together and ask a question. The first thing is, just to review for a second, we had a dispute between Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, who the halacha accords with, and the rabbis, that what is the amount of time that if you tell him, I'll be back, that when you come back, the wine is prohibited? Is it the amount of time that it takes to drill a hole into the top of the barrel? Or is it the amount of time it takes to replaster a new top of the barrel? So Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, he consistently stated that it was to replace a new top, meaning he was not worried about the drilling of the hole. So now, now that with the halacha is like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, he's not worried about the drilling of the hole. We're not worried about that. And Rabbi Eliezer, much earlier, held that we're not worried that the guy's going to go and replace the top of the barrel. He's not going to go and forge a new top of the barrel. So once you put those two together, so what do you worry about nowadays? You're not worried about the drilling. You're not worried about a new top. So ha'idna nowadays, why don't we nowadays place our barrels in the hands of the idol worshiper? Why don't we do that? So there's nothing to worry about. So says the Gemara, my time alone. Different opinions how to read this word. Shaycha, some say Shiba. Rashi learns it means there's a certain hole, a hole that you can put a straw through and get wine out of there. Others say it might be the spout that the wine comes out of. The basic idea is that there's still a concern. There's a way to get to the wine that's not the top of the barrel, and for that we are concerned. And that's why we nowadays don't just freely give out over our wine to the idol worshippers. Okay, now we're gonna have how many stories? A lot of stories, maybe 11 or 12. Yeah. So Amar Rava. So Zona of Eretz Kochavim. So you have a idol worshipping prostitute, Yisrael, and a Jew, a Jewish male, drinking together. Yeah, at the bar. Mesuben, Jill's not happy yet. So Mesuben Etzla, and he's there eating together with her. So what's with the wine? There's wine there that he owns. He brought his own wine. Is that permitted or prohibited? Chamra Shari. That wine is still permitted. Why? He the Takavlu Yitzra, the Aveira. You're right. He's obviously giving in to an incredible indulgence of his evil inclination. However, Yitzra the Yain Nesach lo Takavlu. But that doesn't necessarily signify that he's going to give in to his incredible urge to pour wine for idol worshippers. Just because you have one Yetzirah for something very big does not mean that therefore you have Yetzirah for things that are, so to speak, smaller. So therefore, the wine is still going to be permitted. Now the flip case. Also, Jewel's not going to be happy. Zoni Yisraelis, a Jewish prostitute, the Ovdei Kochavim, Mesubin, and a idol worshipper. They're drinking together. So there we say the wine is prohibited. If she brings her own wine, there we could assume that the idol worshiper took it and poured it for his wine libations, for his idol worshiping purposes. My time, why? Hoel vizila alayu basrahu grira. She's already cheap in their eyes, meaning she's giving into their lusts. So it's not so far of a stretch to give in to them when they ask you to pour some wine. So once you're giving in that way, then you're going to give in the wine pouring way also, and therefore the wine is going to be prohibited. Here we go with, I think, 11 straight stories. So, yeah. So, Hahu Besa. So there was a house. Where a Jew where a Jew had his wine. Now, all obdei kochavim and achta ledasha ba'ape. A idol worshiper came in, and I think he locked the door behind him, right? So v'have biza b'dasha. There's a small hole in the doorway. So now, and you peek through the peek hole. So that's the peek hole from the other side. Yeah, it's the broken peek hole that you can see from the outside in. So what do you see? So v'have biza b'dasha ishtachei obdei kochavim dekayi beini dani. Oh, you peeked in, and what do you know? Mr. Idol Worshipper is right in between all my wine barrels. So Amar Rava. So okay. So what's the halakha? So Amar Rava called the lahade b'zei ashari the hayigisa aser. Anything which is right in front of the people that you could see, that wine is permitted because he knows that a Jew might see him messing with the wine. But anything on the left or the right side of the people, which you cannot see, that is going to be prohibited because you can assume he has nothing to worry about. The door is locked and no one can see him. Yeah. So that next story, Hahu Chamer Yisrael, there was wine of a Jew. The Habi Yosef Bebesaho, that was in the house. The Havi Dayer Yisrael Bel Yona of Obed Kochavim B'Tachtono. So the Jew rented the upstairs and the non-Jew rented the downstairs. So now what happened? Shamu Kal Tigra. They heard some fighting outside. So Nafki. So they went outside to go look at who was fighting. So Kadim Asa Kochavim. So now when they went back inside, the non-Jew, idol worshiper, he went back inside first, and Akdal Adasha Ba'ape. And sounds like he locked the door. Amarava Chamar Shari, the wine is permitted. Why? Meimar Amar, he thinks in his head, Ki Heichid the Kadim Asai Ana, Ki Heichid the Kadim Asai Ana, Kadim Asi Yisrael B'Asa B'Layon B'Kachazili. Just like I ran in first, he might have also ran into his upstairs. And now he could see me from the upstairs to the downstairs. Just like I ran back into the house, into my section, he probably ran back into his section. And now that that's true, he might be able to see me, and therefore I'm not going to mess with the wine. Therefore, we permit the wine. Okay, next story. Hahu Ushpiza. We have the Sheraton. The Havi Yosef Beichamr is a hotel. Havi Yosef Beichamr Yisrael, and the Jew kept his wine there. Now, what happened? You go look in, and all of a sudden, there's a burglar. Oh, what do you know? You walk into your hotel, and there's an idol worshiper right where you store your wine. So, Amar Rava, im nitfas alav keganav. So, if he's worried that he might be caught as a robber, then the wine is permitted because he's not going to go and risk being caught. So, therefore, but if not, if he knows he's not going to be caught as a robber, so therefore, it is permitted. So, I don't know, let's say nowadays, you walk around the lobby, no one's going to catch you in the lobby and tell you you're a robber to leave. But let's say you're only past that point where, only people in the hotel could stay, and you don't belong there. And you know that if they catch you, you're in big trouble. So in that case, it can be permitted because you're not going to risk it. Okay, next story. There was a house where you had the Jewish wine. There was the idol worshiper who was Kayim Beidani. He was standing between the barrels of wine. Now, here's a interesting logic. Amar Rava, like this. Rava said, what's the halacha? You found the idol worshiper in between the barrels of wine in your house. So now, Rashi learns what it means is if he has a good reason to be there, then chamra asir, then the wine's going to be prohibited. If you can justify him being in your house, he's not going to worry about the fact that he could be caught as a robber. So I think they bring what are examples of that? If he's scared of a lion, did different things. I don't know. Nowadays maybe there was a hurricane that hit or a thunderstorm, but he ran inside. As long as he could justify him being there, so then the wine is going to be prohibited because he's not scared of anything. So if you ask him, what are you doing here? He'll say, I came in because there's a thunderstorm outside, there's hail outside, I had to go inside. Exactly. So, however, if he has no reason no justifiable reason why he's there, then chamra shari, then the wine's going to be permitted, because if he has no reason that he's there, and therefore the only reason that he's there is because he's going to mess with your wine, then we assume he's not going to go and take that risk, and the wine is going to be permitted. So on that we asked, Meisvei, Ninol Hapundik. Let's say you went and you locked your hotel with auto worshiper inside, or Shamar, you told him, Shamar, guard it for me, I'll be back in a while. Usher, then it's prohibited. Either he's secluded inside with your wine, locked, or he's the guard outside that you told him, listen, guard my wine. So guard my wine is another way of saying I'll be back in a while. Oh, you'll be back in a while, so I'll do whatever I want. So it says the Gemara now, isn't this a case where he has no reason why he's there? Meaning, why else is he going to be touching your wine? You asked him to be there. There's no reason, other reason why he's there, and yet we say it's prohibited. And before we just said, if he has no reason why he's there, he's not going to be scared of touching. He will be scared of touching the wine. In this case, he has no other reason why he's there, so he has nothing to be scared of. And yet we say the wine is prohibited, not permitted. So the question is, when you have no other excuse of why you're there, or are you scared to touch the Jewish wine? Or are you not scared to touch the Jewish wine? Says no, but the really, you have to say that the case is he's there, but he's also there for another reason. He's not only there just to guard your wine. He has other reasons for being in this building, in this inn. If he has a business meeting or whatever it is, and therefore, since he's there for another reason, so therefore the wine will be prohibited because he feels he can justify him being there, and he's not scared of you coming, and therefore it's a little bit of a funnier case because you asked him to be there. You secluded yourself. You secluded him with the wine. Unless maybe, I guess, you didn't ask him to be secluded with the wine. You happened to lock your hotel. He happened to be inside. Yeah. Okay. Next case. There was a non-Jew and the idol worshiper and a Jew that were sitting together and they were drinking wine together. What happened? Shama Yisroel Kal Tzluye Beit Knishta. The Jew heard the tefillah, the prayers, at the shul. So, time for mincha. He heard Ashrei, time to go. So, Kam V'azal, he got up to go to the shul, meaning he left the idol worshiper alone with his wine. So, Amar Rava, Chamra Shari, the wine is permitted. Why? Meimer Amar, because the idol worshiper is going to think in his head, Hashta Mitkar Le Lechamre V'Hadar Asif. He's going to remember that he left me with his wine. He'll be back in a second because that's a bad idea. So therefore, he's not going to risk taking the wine and using it for the wine libation. Yeah. Okay. Now you have a case. The Jew and the idol worshiper are sitting on a boat. And what happened before Shabbos came? Slavs in Yerushalayim, they used to blow shofar. Now they have a siren that goes off. That Shabbos is coming. So what happened? Shama Yisrael Kal Shipurei, the Bei Shimsha. He heard it's almost time for Shabbos. So what did he do? He got off the boat. Nafak Fazil. He got off his boat and he went along his way. Now, what's the wine? The wine's now with the idol worshiper on a boat. So that's risky business. Amarava Chamra Shari. Rava says the wine is permitted. Why is the wine permitted? Meimer Amar, he's going to say, Hashta Mitra Lechamre V'Hadar Asi. He's going to remember that he left me on a boat with his wine, and he's going to come back. Now, hold on. Shabbos. He's not going to go on a boat on Shabbos. So maybe you'll say, V'imi Shum Shabbos. It's Shabbos. So why would the idol worshiper ever think that the Jews are going to come back on Shabbos onto the boat? Even the idol worshiper knows Jews don't do those things. So, but Rava says, Ha'amar li Isur Gira, Isur the convert told me the following. Ki Havina and Bar Miusam, when I was back in my non-Jewish days, I would say the following. Amrinan, we would say about the Jews, Yehudai lo mintri Shabbos. We know the Jews don't keep Shabbos. How do we know? Because if they would keep Shabbos, the mintri Shabbos, Kama kisi kamishtachi b'shuka. We would find so many money pouches left around the marketplace. And yet the marketplace is clean of money. So obviously the Jews went and on Shabbos and took their pouches and carried it home. So we see that they don't keep Shabbos. Now, the problem was, we only thought that because we didn't know Lo Yadana the Svirlan Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak has a teaching, which you have to know how to apply it nowadays, it's not so clear. Don't take this as a practical law right now. Rabbi Yitzchak, Hamotzi Kis B'Shabbos, Molicho Pakos Pak Arba Amos. Simply understood as the following. There's a prohibition of carrying something Arba Amos. Arba Amos is the amount, about 6.5 feet, 6 feet, is the amount that is the measurement of prohibited carrying on Shabbos in a public domain. An area with no area, a public domain. So now, you're not allowed to carry. However, now the carrying requires what we call, you have to pick it up and you have to put it down. It's called an akira and a hanacha. So the first mission in Shabbos talks about, I pick it up and I give it to you and you put it down. Right? That's not the full prohibition. The prohibition is I have to do an akira, I have to uproot it, and then I have to go and I have to place it down. Now, when I'm walking in a public domain, so really, if I'm holding something, every step I take is a uprooting of the object, and when I put my foot down, right, it's a placing. So that only is considered the act when you stop walking. So if I go, let's say I go Arba Amos and then I stop, I'm in trouble. However, if you go less than Arba Amos, so let's say, you pick it up, you carry, and then you stop. So you only walk 2 Amos, and you stop. Then you walk 2 Amos, and you stop. So that's not biblically prohibited. It is most definitely rabbinically prohibited. However, for certain cases, not all cases, for certain cases, like the loss of money, the rabbis waived their rule and allowed you to carry something less than Arba Amos at a time. As long as you carry it less than Arba Amos at a time, since you've not violated the biblical prohibition, so then it would be permitted biblically, and the rabbis waived that. So yeah, that can come up nowadays. A person all of a sudden he realizes, I don't know, he dropped his $1 million, and who knows, dropped nowadays $1 million, but you can have a very expensive object that you left somewhere. Now nowadays it's going to be a little bit easier because where Jews live, it's not usually in the middle of what's considered a public domain, right? We're not usually in the middle of Times Square on Shabbat afternoon. Most places that we live is only rabbinically prohibited from carrying. It's called the Carmelists. Now, in that area of a Carmelist, you need an Eruv to allow carrying. But even now, if God forbid the Eruv fell down, right? So the carrying that would be done would not be a biblical prohibition. It doesn't mean it's permitted, but we're not in a public domain. It's only a private. It's a middle between a public and a private domain. Okay. So, Hahu Aryeh. All of a sudden, we heard a lion. Hahu Aryeh to have a noyim next to the wine, where the wine was. They heard a lion roar. Yeah. Shama Obed Kafavim. It's just interesting to me that the way the Gemara expresses itself. When it came for the time of the prayers, the Gemara said only a Jew heard. It didn't say they both heard. So he's wearing 2 when it says Asher. It's just interesting. When it comes to the lion roaring, it says that the idol worshiper heard. It didn't say the Jew heard. I don't know. It's just interesting the way it says it. So who are you? He was roaring by the wine. Shama Obed Kafavim. So Tasha Beitni Dani. He went and he hid between the wine barrels. What's with the wine? Again, it's permitted to drink, even permitted. Neimer Amar, why? Listen, we're both pretty smart. If you hear a lion roar, you gotta hide. So the same way I'm hiding between these barrels, I bet you Shmuel's right behind me, hiding in his barrels, and he's watching me, making sure I don't go when I pour it. Yeah. Okay, so now we're gonna get to robbers. You see robbers, interesting cases. Hahu Ganvi. Hahu Ganvi, they were certain robbers. This Salki, they went up to the Jewish town of Pumpadisa. Le Pumpadisa. Upaschu Chavisa Tuva. And they opened up a lot of barrels of wine. You come in there and you see hundreds of wine barrels that are open. So what are you going to do? Amarava Chamra Shari. Rava says, Chamra Shari, the wine is permitted. Why is the wine permitted? They literally went and they opened up all the wine barrels. So the wine is permitted because my time, Ruba Ganvi Yisrael, in this town, it's a very Jewish town. So most of the robbers, unfortunately, are Jews. So therefore, you don't have to worry about that. Now, the same thing happened in Nahardai. The Amr Shmuel, Chamra Shari, and Nahardai was not as Jewishly populated as Pumpadisa was, and yet Shmuel still allowed the wine. So the question was, you don't know anymore if it's a Jew or a non-Jew open the wine, and you just permitted it? How did that happen? Kiman, Rabbi Eliezer, like the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, the Amr, Safek Bia Tahor. He says a doubtful entrance is pure. What does that mean? Let's see. The Tanakh says the Mishnah Hanichnas Lebicha. You go into a certain valley,
inner area field.
That's a better way. Yeah, an area of field. Now, be most like a shaman during the rainy season. Now you know for sure in one of these fields there was a dead body or whatever, somebody buried. It wasn't demarcated. But you know for sure in that area of those multiple fields, there is tumah there. There's impurity there. The tumah besada plonis, and there was impurity there. Now the guy comes back and tells you the following: the Amar halachti b'makom halas. I went over there to that area. The Eini Yodea im Nichnas. So I went to that part of town, to where the fields were. I'm not sure if I entered to that field. So you don't know if you entered that field or not. Imlo Nichnasi. You're not sure. You're in the general vicinity, but you're not sure you actually entered the field. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Stafek Bia Tahor. A doubtful entrance is permitted. So, yeah. Right? So just like we're not even sure, did he even enter the field that might have a toma or not? We're not sure. So therefore, he permits it. So too, if you're not sure, did a non-Jew even open the barrel? It might have been a Jew. That's also going to be permitted. If you know he entered the field, but you're not sure if he touched the dead body or not, suffix maga tame, then that's going to be prohibited, because he said, I went to the field where there was impurity. I'm not sure if I touched or not. That's much more of a bona fide doubt, and therefore that's going to be prohibited. But where you're not even sure if you enter the field, that's going to be permitted. So, says the Gemara, no. Shmuel, who allows the barrels of wine, who's not sure if it's a Jew or a non-Jew, we're not pinning him to the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Why? Look, shiny Hassam, when it comes to barrels of wine, there's another factor here, is that many times they open up the barrels of wine just for money. They're checking for money. It sounds like people would, I don't know, people would, by the barrels. Meaning they weren't sure if it's a wine barrel or not.
Oh, okay.
Like if it's other stuff.
It could be an empty.
They open up to see, not there. So.
Oh, look at all the money.
So that's called a svek sveka. A svek sveka is a double doubt. A double doubt means the first doubt is you're not sure, was it a Jew, was it a non-Jew, idol worshiper who opened it up? And even if it was an idol worshiper, you're not sure if he was searching for money or pouring wine for idol worship. That's a double doubt. That's called a svek sveka. It comes up a lot in halacha. We're much more lenient by a svek sveka, by a double doubt. So, yeah, svek, suffix means a doubt. So a svek sveka is a doubtful doubt. Yeah, in other words, a double doubt, a doubtful doubt. So, okay, turn the page, more stories. So, Hahira Visa, there was a young idol worshiper girl. Now, Rashi is going to say it's important that she's young, because she hasn't learned the trade of robbing yet. So the Ishtach David Beni Dani, she was found, where was she found? Between the wine barrels. The Have Nikita Ufya Biyade. And she was holding in her hand the foam. When wine ferments, there's that foam. Sounds like to me like when you pour some soda, you have that foam. When you pour a beer, you have the foam. So something like that for the wine too. So now, well, did she touch the wine? Did she not touch the wine? She's holding the foam and her hands are covered in the wine foam. So Amar Rava, another Rava, Kamra Shari, permitted. Amar, why? That she took it from the outside of the barrel. The Afagav the Lake Asu, look at it, you don't see any foam right now. It could be that it's all gone. But it was there, it's all gone now. So that fact that she's holding that does not necessarily mean that she took it from the inside. That she took it from the inside. Yeah. So yeah, Rashi says that it's a girl, she doesn't know the ways of like wine, pouring wine for idol worship yet. She's a 4-year-old girl, 5-year-old girl. But a older girl, you would assume that she does know, the trade of pouring wine for idol worship, and therefore it's going to be prohibited. Next case, Hahu Pul Musa. There was a Pul Musa, a general of the army, an army general. Bisalik l'naharda. He went up to Naharda. And what did he do? Paschu chavisa tuva. He opened up many barrels. Also, Ravdimi, Amar Uvda Havi Kamed Rabbi Lazar Vishara. He told him what happened and brought this to Rabbi Lazar, and he permitted it. So 1 second, why is a non-Jew, idol worshiper, opening up lots of barrels? Why are we permitting this? We're not sure why he permitted it. Imishum de Sabarla ki Rabbi Eliezer. Maybe he holds like Rabbi Eliezer, the Amar Safek Bia Tahor. Maybe it's like Rabbi Eliezer that yeah, we'll see why in a second. Or imishum desaver ruba the azi v'havi musa yisolen. So it's a time of war. So the guy comes to town and he opens up way too many bottles. So now we're not sure why it's permitted. So either it's permitted because it's like Rabbi Eliezer, we're not sure if he opened it or not. Or the other one is we're not sure that it could be that everyone that came with him are mostly Jews. So maybe it was the Jews that opened it, not him. So yeah. So now it says in 1 second. We're assuming that this head of the army guy opened up the barrels. So it's not like Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer's case was we're not sure if you entered that field or not. We're not sure if it was a Jew or an idol worshiper. Here we assume it's him. On that, according to that reasoning, that he was the one that opened it, it's not called Safek Bia, a doubtful entrance into the field. It's Safek Maga. We're not sure if he touched the wine or not. So if it's according to Rabbi Eliezer holds if a guy went into a field where there's some kind of impurity there, but he's not sure if he touched it, that's out of doubt, that's prohibited. So to here, out of doubt, it should be prohibited. Says no. Kevan de Miftachi Tuva, since he opened up so many barrels, way more than one guy could drink, or one guy could even serve for idol worship. He opened up 1,000 barrels. Why? Obviously, Ema adaited him amona pasku, ukasafik biadami. So it's an interesting thing. We see a guy here. We're assuming it's the idol worshiper that opened up all the barrels. The problem was, whatever the average barrel opening for a guy like that would be, let's say 50 barrels he would open for idol worship. I don't know. He opened up 1,000 barrels for idol worship. What's he showing us? It's clear. It's more than a regular doubt. It's much clearer to us what his agenda is. He's looking for money. And so it's not an equal doubt. Oh, we're not sure. Did he not? He's showing us that he clearly wants to find money inside the barrels. And that's why he's opening up so many of them. Since that's a little bit like weighing on us, meaning that's not more, it's no more an equal doubt. It's much more of a reason to assume you open it for the money. It reverts back to a case of Safek Bia, of a similar case of Rabbi Eliezer, where you're not even sure if he went into the field or not. This is, he opened it, but because the other side is so, it's weighed to one side, so it becomes much more than a regular doubt. If he touched it or not, it becomes much more doubtful that he actually used it for idol worship, and therefore that is going to be permitted. Hahi Misuvisa, next story, there was a Misuvisa, a lady who sold wine. Yeah. The Masrala Iklida, she gave over the, it sounds like the lock, the key to the lock to her wine store. So a lady was selling wine. She gave over the key to an idol worshiper. So now, that's pretty reason to assume that she went in and she stole the stuff. So So fine. She gave over the key to the idol worshiper. Amar Rav Yitzchak says, Rav Yitzchak, Amar Belazar, Ubda Have Be Midrasha. There was this happened, and it came up in the base medrash in the study hall. The Amru, and they said, Lo Masra La Ella Shmiras Mafteach Bovad. No, she didn't give her the key and say, basically, it's yours. Go do what you want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not like you give your house to a bunch of seed guys and say, do what you want. You know, that's like she gave her she's able to watch the key. I gave you the key to watch, just to keep in your house, not to go into my house. Therefore, it'll be permitted. We also learned you gave over the keys to an idol worshiper, and now so now we're talking about a case where you have a learned person and a not learned person, and you have a bunch of food that's in a state of purity, and you gave over your keys to the Am Haaretz who doesn't know the laws. So we say that your pure food remains pure. Why? You gave him just the key to watch, not the key to do what you want. So now the Gemara says, Hashta tehoros yain nesech mibayi. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. There's a brisa that says that you gave it over and the food remains pure. For sure, the wine is not going to be wine libation. That's not going to be idol worship or wine. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Are you telling me that the food remaining pure is more stringent than wine being used for idol worship, and therefore you're drawing a kal v'chomer and asking that your statement is repetitive? The assumption is, well, for sure, if the key was given to him for food that remains pure, for sure the wine is nothing to worry about. And therefore, Rava, what are you teaching us? Or not Rava, Rabbi Lazar, what are you teaching us? Says the Gemara, hold on, why are you making that assumption that the food remaining pure is more strict than the wine, and therefore when you find a leniency by the food, you can apply that same leniency to the wine? Who told you that's true? Is that really true that it's more stringent than idol worshipping wine? Says the Gemara, yes. The Itmar, as it says, Chatzer. I'll show you that it is more stringent. Chatzer, that what? We have a courtyard. Chilka b'mesipas. It's divided up by a certain, not a fence, but mesipas is like demarcation. Demarcation. This is my side. This is your side. I don't know if they put cones there or they put lines there, but it's not a fence. It's a place where you could reach your hand over to the other side in a very easily accessible way. You don't have to climb over a fence to do that. So there was a chatzar between a Talmud Chacham lived on one side and the not learned person Amar lived on the other side, divided by demarcations. So now, clearly, the Amaretz can go put his hand over and touch the fruits. So are we worried about that, and therefore render the fruits to be impure or not? So now we're going to have a lot of these kinds of cases. So Amar Rav, well, first let's get their opinions. Rav says to Harosov Tmeos. Rav says, yeah, they're impure. You have to assume that the guy went and touched it, and therefore they're in a state of impurity. So that's only by the Torah scholar and the not learned person. If the same thing happened with the Obed Kolchavim, an idol worshiper, and the other side of the fence was a Jew, and the Jew has wine on his side, and the idol worshiper can easily go and touch it and pour it and use it. So, according to Rav, you see that yes, the food remaining pure, we see, is more stringent. We're more worried about it than we are by Yain Nasa. That's the opinion of Rav. Rabbi Yochanan states, Af tehoros of tehoros, even the food is going to remain pure. He is not concerned. Rav is concerned. Rabbi Yochanan is not concerned, not for the food. Yeah. Okay, so those are the statements of Rav and Rabbi Yochanan. Now we're going to ask a lot of different questions in different setups of the houses, asking on them. So, for example, Meisvei. You have a inner courtyard and an outer courtyard. So you imagine you have the public street. Let's say, for example, you have Capitol Highway over here, and you have this parking lot, the first parking lot by Kessler, and then you have the back playground, right? You have an inner courtyard and you have the outer courtyard. The outer one goes onto the street, and the inner one is the inner one. Yeah. So now the inner one belongs to the Torah scholar, and the outer one belongs to the not learned person, Sha'ama Arts. So now, the inner courtyard, the inner courtyard, the Torah scholar often puts out his fruits. They're there, spread out in his inner courtyard. And he puts out his vessels there to dry or whatever it is. Or maybe he stores them there, he puts them out there. The Afal Pishiyah, the Sham, even though the hand of the not learned person, Amart, could go and reach over to the inner courtyard, from the outer to the inner courtyard, we still say it's permitted. We're not worried about that. So that's a kasha on Rav. Rav said if you have a field that's demarcated, we are worried about it. Yet by an inner and outer courtyard, we're not worried about it. What's the difference? Kasha the Rav. That's a difficulty for Rav. Amr like Rav says not a difficulty. Shiny Hassam, Shenitfas Alav Kikana. There's going to be a difference. Is that by the case of the inner and the outer courtyard, this is going to be a hard statement. Why? Because by the inner and the outer courtyard, Rav is going to say that if you're caught going to someone else's courtyard, you're a gana. That's like you be taken away for theft, for thievery. So that's why you're not going to do that. That's why it's permitted. As opposed to two courtyards that are demarcated, there Rav says you won't be taken as a thief. Now the question is why not? Exactly. That's the question. Why not? That's the hard part. So what you have to say is somehow it's more regular. Not, like we don't see you as a thief as much. Something like that. We don't see you as a thief as much if you're just putting your hand over. You're on your side, but you're putting your hand over to someone else's courtyard. So you go into their courtyard, that's already give a good example.
But you're physically moving your whole body, putting your body.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. If you're actually putting your body in his side, it should be very similar, right? Sounds like your hand could reach over. Yeah, therefore you're not viewed as much. You're not nervous. Now you can give different explanations why. Maybe it's more common for neighbors. Sometimes the hand goes over, versus no one ever goes into the inner courtyard. That never happens.
Since the Amharic has no business being in the inner courtyard, he risks being too step. If he is court extending his hand in there, this is as opposed to the courtyard divided by 1,000 marbles, one big courtyard. Thus should the Amharic court extending his hand on the Chaver's side, he would not be accused of thievery.
So I'm thinking now that there's a few things. First of all, from the outside perspective, if you look at one courtyard that's demarcated, and you see a guy putting his hand over, I can understand from the outside, it looks like it's one courtyard. It could be less of a thievery. Maybe, you could justify, maybe he thought it was his side or whatever. If it's going to someone else's inner courtyard, that's clearly, that's really much more. There, or it takes more to get into someone else's courtyard. That's much more of a thievery act. I'm thinking now like kids do this, right? Like kids understand to go into someone else's house, or something like that and take their stuff. That's thievery. But when you're in a store, and you want, go behind the counter, that's not thievery. Or things like that. But it's a hard line. But the point is that you're considered more of a thief when you're going to the inner courtyard than the outer courtyard. You're considered less of a thief when you're putting your hand over the demarcation into your friend's courtyard. Yeah. Tashma, another story, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer, Gago, now you have different sides, the different roofs. So Gago shel chaver l'malam Gago shel Amar. You have two houses, two roofs. The roof of the Torah scholar is higher up than the roof of the Amar. So also chaver shetech sham peiros u'maniach sham kelim u'bavad shel tehei yados Amar magas l'sham. He can put out his fruits and put out his vessels on his roof, as long as his neighbor's hand, his Amar's hand, can't reach there. So that's a kash to Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Yochanan says in a case of the field with a demarcation, even when his hand could reach and touch, it's still permitted. Here we're saying if the roofs were in line and your hand could reach, so then it's going to be prohibited. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, not a big difference. Shiny Hasan, the Islay, Leishtamute. Why? Meimer Amar Imtsuri Kamemtsura. The reason why the roofs is going to be different is because you're going to be able to justify yourself reaching up so high you can touch his roof. Why? You'll make up an excuse. I'm just measuring my house, right? So I'm just measuring my house. Since he has a valid excuse in his head of why he's up so high on his roof, in arm's reach of your stuff, he's not going to be scared to then touch your wine. As opposed to if you have a field, my side and your side, There's no justifiable reason why you're touching my stuff. Yeah. So therefore, once you have that excuse, we're nervous that you are going to go and do something about it, as opposed to the field where you don't have an excuse. Therefore, we're not worried. We're not worried that you're going to go and do anything. Time is it? Okay, let's get to the Mishnah. So, yeah, well, I think one more case. Tashma gago shel chaver b'tzad gago shel am aretz. Now you have their side to side. The roof of the Talmud Chacham and the roof of the am aretz are side to side. Oso chaver shoteach sham peiros. So same guy, first scholar puts out his fruit and his vessels. Clearly, the unlearned person can go and reach over and touch it. So that's a kasha and Rav by one field, the demarcation. Rav said if your hand can reach over, it's going to be prohibited. Yet by two roofs, it's going to be permitted. How's Rav going to answer? Rav says, I don't understand. I'm going like opinion of Rishon and Gamliel. That's all. Who is worried for these things? I'm just going like Rishon and Gamliel. He would be worried for this. You asked me a question from this case, I'm going to tell you. I go like Rishon and Gamliel, who is worried about that case. So therefore, according to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, he is worried about the hand reaching over, and therefore Rav hold I'm also going to be worried about the hand reaching over, and therefore I would assume that these fruits are going to be impure, or these vessels are going to be impure, and therefore it's not a question, and therefore it's not a question on me. Okay, we'll start again. Mm-hmm.